Hello, thank you for taking the time to meet up with me. I'm looking forward to learning how you got to where you are today. At this point, I want to be an Imagineer at Disneyland, but I'm still considering other options. So I wanted to see what place you were in whenever you were in my age and see how you got from there. Uh, right now, I'm going to try and figure out where I want to be in 10 years. I was hoping you'd give me some advice on where to start. So I'll start out with the question, did you know you wanted to do this whenever you were in high school?
No.
You did not?
No.
What do you think you wanted to do in high school?
I wasn't quite sure. I got a late start, and I went to a junior college, and I actually started over. And I said, okay, I'm going to get through all my maths and sciences and everything, and I started doing it, and I just loved it. And I started doing really good. And so I got through that, and I applied to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, in their program called Engineering Technology. They had about 5 disciplines in engineering technology, like mechanical, electrical, construction management, heating and air, and I can't remember, industrial was the last one. And so I thought I wanted to do that, and I went in 1 year. But in the meantime, I got a job with the county of Stanislaus and Modesto as a land surveyor. So I started getting interested in applying the math to the land and the geometry, and so I thought about civil engineering. So when I went to Cal Poly for 1 year, I switched to civil engineering, and I basically started all over.
So, whenever you were doing that, what made you decide that you wanted to be a civil engineer? What sparked that?
I think it was the land surveying. I just liked the idea of maps and geology and applying the math to that and the sciences. And I knew that I could take that further. I knew that was one little area, one discipline of civil, and I knew that I could maybe get into it and look at something like public works or things that where I was building infrastructure.
Did it come hard to you going through the program and becoming a civil engineer?
It was hard for me, especially at first, because I had to work. I was paying my own way, so I had to use student loans and work a lot of hours. I worked basically all summers, all Christmas and Easter breaks, and worked while I was in school at the campus library. So I think in looking back, having to work so much, that's what kind of made it difficult, because when you don't have to work, you need to focus on your studies. That makes it a little easier.
So would you recommend someone else to follow the path that you took, or do you think there's an easier way to get to where you got that's just as effective?
Well, knowing sooner what you want to do, and like you said, you want to be an Imagineer. That was actually one of the things that I looked at when I was looking at jobs when I graduated. I mean, when I was looking for jobs my senior year, was Disney was hiring. I don't believe it was Imagineer. It was something else, but it was more towards civil, where you would go in and reconstruct some of the rides and some of the theme park adjustments where they'd have modifications. So I thought about that, but back to your question, it's easier if you know, like you say, I want to do that, just try it and go for it. Me, I didn't know, and so I just had to kind of take more of math and sciences without a focus and a major. And if I had to do it over again, or if I had to recommend it to somebody, I'd say just try it and go for it, and then see what you like. Because you can always change.
Do you have fun at your job? And do you enjoy doing your job?
Yeah, I ended up using a lot of math on doing horizontal and vertical alignments for a freeway project. It was very interesting. And then applying the soil sciences that I learned in civil to all the earthwork and everything that we do, learning my hydraulics and hydrology and all the plumbing and everything for the infrastructure. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And what it does is it broadens you, because you can do some of that detailed design, but then you can later in your career you can get into management and things where you start managing programs and projects, and that's where it really gets interesting later.
So what were your thoughts in high school whenever you knew that you were going to graduate? And
well, that's a great question, because my freshman year was kind of tough, and then my sophomore year I did better, and then I started thinking, I'm not taking the right classes if I want to go to college, and so I started focusing more on some classes that I needed to take, and I knew that if I wanted to go to college, I had to get serious, and I did. And that's why I went to junior college first, because I really kind of got a late start, and I wasn't really serious at first. Another thing that helped me was they did interviews on campus your senior year. So as you got close, if you had about a half a year or more left, they went through a class on campus where they teach you how to do resumes and how to interview properly and give you tips. And then they brought actually companies on campus to interview. So I got about 5 of those. So that was helpful too, to kind of help direct you.
Are there any other jobs that you were looking at in civil engineering?
Yeah, I interviewed with a couple of major construction firms, and I got a second interview with one of them, and it conflicted with some of my finals, so I couldn't do it. Then I also interviewed with a company I really was interested in. It was a geothermal plant up in Santa Rosa or above Santa Rosa for some of the geysers and getting the geothermal energy out of the ground. And it sounded really interesting to me. But it needed to be a specialized degree with it because there was a lot of earthquake engineering they wanted with it, and I hadn't had it at the time.
What classes did you take in college that you feel like were very beneficial with you in your job?
Well, of course, when you take all the math and the sciences and you don't really use a lot of it when you get to your job, and I remember asking one of my professors why we had to take so much calculus and stuff, and he told me that it was really to weed people out, to see if people could think and figure things out and theories, and it all came to me later in my career that it teaches you critical thinking. So all the math and all the detail stuff that you do teaches you steps and how to analyze and how to do critical thinking. But some of the stuff I used in my career job, of course, was the civil, the structural engineering, which was steel design, concrete design, some of the geology and soil sciences, and fluid mechanics and hydrology and hydraulics, all that kind of stuff, because it's all about the civil building and public work infrastructure.
What do you have the most fun with in your job?
Well, now in my career, I'm a manager, so it's really developing policies, because it's a statewide job, so it affects things up and down the state of California. So I really enjoy thinking about how designs work on projects, and then how do you work programs to fund them, to manage them, to implement them, that you can do efficient ways that save money or cut corners. And I kind of like that part of the job. It's almost like managing an engineering program.
Where do you feel like you've made the most impact in doing your job in the company that you're in, or in all the hydraulic systems and stuff like that?
I think that there's two things. One is whatever job you get, the things that are the most impactful as an employee and make you a good employee is learning as much breadth about what you do. In other words, I would go work in a certain area, and it was the project development process was huge, but I might have been one piece of it, and I would always try to understand where the project was before it came to me and where it went after me. So you start learning about things that are kind of out of your sphere of influence, but you kind of learn about them. So the more you learn, the breadth, the more valuable. And the other thing I think is leadership. Once you get into your job and you're managing projects like that, your leadership really matters. And people are going to look at you, and people are going to want to follow you.
What steps do you take to become a manager at your company? What set you above everybody else in getting that job?
I think working hard was one, showing them that you care, and like I said, learning as much as you can about whatever you're doing, because as much as you know, as much as you can learn, you always can learn more. And there's always going to be somebody else that knows something you don't know. And I always tried to build teams. I do it in a team atmosphere where we kind of we're a brain trust. We're a team, and we can get through this. And the teamwork really helped. I think that's one of the things that helped me excel and succeed in my job.
So how do you set up your teams whenever you do them? Do you give everybody specific roles, or do you give
Well, one of the best things in building a team is having people that have different strengths, and because not everyone's going to have the same strengths and the same weaknesses. So if you get people that have different strengths together, it's just great. I mean, you think of a gear on a bicycle. I mean, you have a few of the teeth missing, and it doesn't work as good. So I'd find people that had different strengths, and then all of a sudden you start integrating that team, and they start working together, and you can produce so much more because there's always somebody has a great idea. I just added a new manager recently, and I thought he wasn't going to offer that much, and it turned out he had insight that nobody else had. So that's one of the things about building a team.
Is there anything outside of your job in college that you feel has helped you in your job that you've done?
Probably, different people along my life, either whether it was a teacher in school or somebody that was in the profession that I knew would always kind of encourage me to, even though it was taking a long time, they'd say, don't give up. I remember one time when I was surveying on that county survey crew, and my boss, they had a job opening that I could have gotten. It was a lot of money, and I said, hey, I'll just take a year off school, and then I can make some money and it'll help me out. He said, don't do it. And he said, you may never go back, and keep doing it even if it's taking longer. That was great advice. I think that really helped me a lot because it just made me, no matter how hard it got, it made me just keep doing it.
What do you feel like helped you get to the college that you got into? What do you feel like helped you get into Cal Poly?
Well, the only reason I applied there is because that's where my only brother who went to college went, and he was actually in dairy manufacturing, and that's something I forgot to bring up. I thought maybe that's what I'd want to do. I was taking classes at Modesto Junior College and dairy science. I thought I wanted to follow his footsteps because the dairy industry, food and ag, was really booming at the time. And I was taking some of those classes, but when I was taking the math and sciences, I was doing well, and it kind of steered me over to the engineering side. But him going there is why I picked the school. I love the climate, I love the town, and that's why it kind of steered me towards there. And they were a good engineering school. I was very happy to get in.
Are there any other colleges that you applied to?
I didn't apply to any of them. Luckily, I probably would have applied to probably state colleges because they were a better deal for me at the time. I probably would have applied to Sac State and Sonoma State, and maybe some of the other ones, San Diego State, if I could have afforded it. But I didn't apply to any other. I really lucked out. I don't know what I would have done if I would have got rejected. I probably would have went somewhere else or tried